Hello everybody, this is Rudra Pradhan and welcome you all to this particular lecture. And in the last lectures we have discussed about the decision models, and I have given you the background how you have to actually come to the decision models, and then you have to take a management decisions. So, the observation is like that, you have data and then problem background, then using data problem backgrounds you create a kind of decision models. On the basis of decision models, then you will find out to some kind of insight or inference. On the basis of that inference, then you will take some kind of management decisions, right. This is how the particular movement is all about, right. Let me give you some kind of snapshot. This is what actually our background, and today's lecture highlights are like this. So, little bit more understanding on decision models and structure of the decision models, examples of decision models, and various steps to various steps for problem solving and decision making. Decision modelings, what we have already discussed is like this. So, we have two different types of models. So, first models is nothing but called as a deterministic, and the second one is called as stochastics, which we have already highlighted in the previous lectures. So, in the deterministic, the structure is very simple and easy to handle, and you can easily predict the kind of business requirement, but stochastic model is not so easy. It is a little bit complex compared to deterministic models, and here in the stochastic kind of modeling environment, we are connecting with risk and uncertainty. That is why the difference between the two typically depends upon the presence and absence of probability. But anyway, once you design the models, then obviously the idea is that you prepare a kind of structure, the kind of path through which you can actually predict the business requirement. And sometimes since the process is very complex, sometimes as per the kind of involvement of variables or the kind of constants and the kind of risk and uncertainty. So, easily you cannot actually or manually you cannot actually do the things. So, we have to develop algorithms, and the algorithms are usually called as a systematic procedures used to find out optimal solutions on the basis of decision models. So, searching algorithms are used for complex problems, and means search algorithms which are used for complex problems to find a good solution without guaranteeing any kind of optimal solutions. So, that means actually what I told you earlier, we are actually in a search process, and the search process is not actually static, it is completely actually continuous in nature. So, which actually I have discussed in the long back that it is a kind of continuous process altogether, starting with problem identification, the review of past literature, then developing models, data, then data analysis, then the kind of results, inference, then the kind of sensitivity connectivity, robustness connectivity, and then finally to get the kind of best output, and that too for as per the management requirement. And the simple submission is like this, that it is not at all actually static process, it is actually continuous process till you get the best kind of situation. And the fact is that there is nothing called as best, but at a particular point of time you will say that this is the best compared to several alternatives. So, now usually we call as best in the search process when we have a couple of alternatives, and within the couple of alternatives we will see which one is the best compared to others, but that best cannot be actually constant forever. So, it can change with respect to change of the situations. So, that is why whatever may be the kind of environment, we are always in the search process, and the search process is actually continuous, and like learning is not at all actually finite, it is infinite. So, the root of business analytics in the search process is also kind of infinite, but with respect to time kind of requirement or the kind of need. So, we have to actually fix everything, then you will find out some kind of best as per the requirement. If you say everything is infinite, then you are not in a position to take some kind of decision, but at a particular point of time you have to fix everything, then accordingly you have to build the models and you will get some kind of management decisions. Ultimately, these are the process through which actually you have to go for some kind of management decisions, right. So, the structure of decision models are actually like this. So, it can be linear one or it can be nonlinear ones, which I have already mentioned. And again, so there are two different structures, it will be like this. So, the decision models technically can be two types, the linear models and nonlinear models, and linear models can be with two types, with constraints and without constraints, and this is also with constraints and without constraints. So, now technically depending upon the problem or depending upon the kind of business environment, your model can be fitted in any of such kind of environment. So, whatever may be the environment, it is our actually requirement. So, we have to fix as per the kind of problem structure, and then we are looking for actually the best fit or best kind of requirement, and once you find out the best fit or best structures, then that can be utilized or that can be used for better management decisions, and that too as per our business requirement. Okay, so this is how we have to proceed. The structure of decision models is like this. So, we have already highlighted this particular structure. Then any kind of in the business decision models, that too mostly for prescriptive kind of analytics. So, we are having such we are having actually such kind of structure. So, obviously, it is the nothing but optimization structure, where we are mostly keen on values of the decision variable. For example, what should be the quantity of production, what should be this kind of profit structure, what is the kind of cost structure. So, that means we like to actually target a particular variable and the amount of that particular variable, so that we can reach our target, or we can reach as per your management requirement. So, that means technically we need to take a management decision. So, for instance, what should be the level of production for a particular time, what should be the level of profit for a particular. So, without having the particular model or structures, you cannot actually just fix it accordingly. So, this is how we are actually in the process to find out some kind of strategy or some kind of structure through which you have to take a decision. So, in the decision model, the standard structure is you must have a kind of objective structures, and that to starting with tool wise, we are actually applying here optimization tools, and when we optimize when we are actually using optimization tools. So, then obviously, this will be the structure of or the game between fixing objective function and constraints. So, now accordingly the optimization will give you the idea that whether the particular function you like to optimize with respect to maximization or minimization, subject to constraints or without constraints, and if it is constraints, how many constraints, how many variables, all these things will be there always, and then you have to take a kind of optimum solutions. So, ultimately you are looking for a optimal solution or optimum structure through which you can actually get some kind of management decisions. Without knowing the particular structure, without determining the particular structures, you are not in a position to optimize something like. So, it is actually altogether long journey. So, starting from the data structures, the kind of data ability, then the kind of problem background, problem environment, then with the help of analytics tools, then you prepare a models. That model itself will give you some kind of signal or route through which you can take some management decisions. I will give you some examples. Actually, when we are talking about the kind of models altogether, so we are giving some kind of fact based kind of situations. That means, technically the decision models can be linear one, can be nonlinear ones, and sometimes depending upon the situations, you have to design the models, and accordingly this model will give you some kind of better inference. So, this is actually I will give you two examples. This example one, this is actually linear programming problem examples, and the second example is nothing but called as nonlinear programming problems. So, the first one is the case of linear programming, where we have actually two variables. It is a production problem altogether, and there are two products and two constraints, and the constraints has some kind of limits. That means, it is a, since we are in the optimizations, then obviously we have to fix the kind of availability or the kind of limit. Once you fix the limit and the kind of restrictions, then you are going to optimize. Otherwise, there is no point to, or you are not in a position to optimize this particular structure. So, it is nothing but actually 2 into 2 games, 2 products with 2 constraints, and then we are looking for some kind of, that means, if we analyze, I am not going to discuss this problem in details. So, you all can transfer this theoretical information into particular models. This is actually the idea is that how the theoretical information can be quantified into a decision model, like which we have already highlighted, that law of demand or law of supply, where quantity demand depends upon price or quantity supply depends upon price. That is actually a single equation models, and here we have a single equation model with certain constants, and that too with respect to two variables. So, two variables are here tables and chairs. So, if you put tables equal to x 1 and chairs equal to x 2, then by default, so that means technically this is how here. So, this is actually alright. So, like this is a tables and this is a chairs, put this is x 1 and this is x 2, then you have a constraints. So, this will be actually passes through two departments, and then carpentry, and then this is actually painting, and you have actually current production period 2 hours. This is actually a kind of labor requirement constraints, and this is how our labor requirement constraints for painting department. Then as a result, how you can actually streamline the process, and here, so the last message giving that determine the best possible combinations of tables and chairs. That means, how much x 1 and how much x 2 you can produce, so that you can maximize your profit, right. This is how the standard kind of structure. So, that means, so you have to fix a model how much actually profit you are assigning initially. So, you check it here, 70% $70 is for actually tables, and then for chair it is actually 50. So, that means, technically the standard message or standard transformation is like that maximizing objective function. Let us say the structure will be, I can write like this, maximizing z equal to c 1 x 1 plus c 2 x 2 subject to two constraints. Then c 1 is nothing but actually here 70, and x 1 is nothing but tables. Then similarly, chair is nothing but c x 2, then 50 will be coming under here c 2. Then as a result, so the conversion will be z maximize z, that is objective function equal to 70 x 1 plus 50 x 2 subject to two constant. Then you like to optimize, and then you get to know with the available constants or limitations or conditions, what should be your number of table productions and number of chairs production, so that you can actually have a more profit for the business. So, this is a task for you. You can actually transfer and you can check the model accordingly. And corresponding to example ones, we have here second problem, and this is actually nonlinear model. Again, it is with respect to actually two different products altogether, but here the structure again it is a profit business. So, it is the game between revenue and cost. So, now here actually we have two different equations. One particular structure is this ones, and another particular structure is here this ones, and this is actually, so it is a game between profit, and that is the difference between total revenue minus total cost. Since there are two different products and you have two different revenue functions, so you have to just add it, and this is actually a fixed cost, this is actually fixed cost, and then finally you have some kind of constraints. So, 20 for a first one and 30 for second one, and total availability is this much. So, that means like the previous one, this particular problem can be also converted into standard format. You have again objective function subject to a constraints. Then once you design this model, then this model can be again optimized to know the values of the x 1 and values of the x 2. So, that means technically here the standard observation is how much x 1 and how much x 2. So, that means what should be the quantity of x 1 and what is the quantity of x 2 subject to these are the restriction and these are the conditions. So, you convert into a particular mathematical model and think about the kind of solution. The fact is that actually now the question is where is the business analytics. So, now this is actually the kind of the last part is the prescriptive analytics, where we are looking for actually the values of the decision variable, but ultimately, so this equation and these equations we need actually some kind of predictive analytics. Okay. So, that means before that we have some kind of data, and that is what information related to x 1 and x 2 with different kind of situations. Then using this data you have to fit the model like this, transfer this data into model. Then after that we will apply the kind of prescriptive analytics to take some kind of management decision, what should be the size of the x 1 and what should be the size x 2. So, that the business can go to at the highest level as per the requirement of or expected level of profit or something like that. So, now so far as decision models are concerned, so it is actually we are here discussing how you have to actually operate in this prescriptive analytics. So, it is altogether 6-step process. So, first step is the understanding of the problem. So, you have to recognize the problem, whether actually see you starting with let us say data. So, data itself will give you the message that you understand first, then connect with a problem. Once you understand the data, connect with the problems, then you are in a position to build the models. So, once you get the model, and that will give you some kind of path for decision making process. So, now so first particular structure is you have to understand the problems. So, recognizing the problem is the first step of this decision making process. So, then again defining the problem properly. So, once you build the model, so it should be clearly the message should be very clear. So, what should be the kind of focus of or what should be the kind of target, and the model is with respect to what kind of limitations or conditions, all these things. There should be model cannot be actually a developed or can be prepared without any constants or conditions. So, there will be definitely this model is a restricted models with different situation or different condition, but in any situation. So, once you have a models and you are looking for a kind of solution to the business problem, so you have to be very careful and you have to come with a solution with all these conditions and constants. Then after that you are searching for the a kind of best decision. Then third part of this particular process is structuring the problems. You need actually proper structure to go for some kind of solution. Then analyzing the problem, and fifth step is on the basis of analysis you have to interpret the results and then take a decision. And finally, once you get some kind of results, how best you can actually implement it, because sometimes what happen, we are developing something else and you are not in a position to implement. If you are not implementing, then the entire process is actually useless. So you do in such a way that it should be applied. For instance, any innovation or any kind of technological development may not have any value if you don't apply it. Okay, so that means any product or any kind of results or output you are deriving from any different situation or any different structure, it should be applied actually. So any kind of output, whether it is a product or process or something like that. So if you don't find any application or implementation, then it has no value at all. So the entire process is totally useless, and that too it is very costly altogether. So you must be very careful how you have to actually operate. That's why, so the process is not actually again a very simple one. It's very complex, because with the objective that it should be applied finally, and you are coming with some kind of decision, but that decision is not actually implemented. Why it is not implemented? Because your decision may not be very effective. And why not effective? Because the process is not so, your process may be something wrong actually, or your problem identification or orientation or structuring, or somewhere there is something wrong actually. That is how it is again continuous process. When it is not implemented, means there is something wrong. Again you have to actually revisit and again rework, then finally come to a solution. Obviously, since you have a data, you have a kind of problem understanding, then you have a techniques, then I don't think that you will not get a proper model through which you can take a decisions. Definitely, since everything is there, it is actually the requirement is how best you have to connect the things properly. It requires actually proper ordering or kind of processing. So once you do all these things in a systematic way, then definitely you will get a exact result or proper result through which you can it can be used, it can be implemented, and it can be actually as per your requirement. This is how the process altogether. So let me give you some kind of these are all 6 steps, but I will highlight what are these actually 6 steps. So first structure is the understanding of the problem. So here, so far as understanding is concerned, the simple structure is problems exist when there is a gap between what is happening and what we think should be happening. So that means the actual kind of environment and what should be the reality. Okay. So that means the difference between actual happenings and what should be happening. So that is how it's a kind of target. Once you fix the target, then obviously you have to reorient accordingly. So without knowing the actual or without fixing the target, you cannot actually reorient yourself. So when I am saying that it is a kind of continuous search process, something like that, and obviously there should be a target. Otherwise, if you don't fix the target and goals, then how you have to actually reinvestigate, revisit all these things, you have to look into these matters, right. So there should be actually there should be actually kind of target. So that means the data itself will give you some kind of actual kind of fact or actual observation. Then we use actually analytics, then we like to transfer the particular path to towards the target only. So once you, that is actually it's a kind of training kind of things. So training, then to implement. So like the situation is like this, that you cannot give the best until unless you train properly. So over the time, learn, practice, that is what actually continuously revisit, relook like this. Then once you trained smart to develop the model properly, then you can actually do the best, or contribute towards the best. That is how the process of optimization or decision modeling. So, that is why, so the thing is that like this. So, you should know what is actual fact and what should be the actual the desired requirement. So, the whole idea of business analytics is like that we like to bridge the gap between the actual fact and trended fact. So, it is like this. So, let me put like this. See here. Okay, so, the thing is that let us say I will put like this, I will put an environment like this. So, this is the let us say sales kind of environment, sales environment, sales with respect to time, and if I am this is let us say time is weekly, week 1, week 2, week 3 and so on, and I am plotting the actual phenomena may be like this and the desired phenomena will be like this, or it is something like that. Okay. So, let me clean once, I will put more in a more attractive way. This is 0 to week 1, week 2, week 3 and so on like this. So, this is the actual kind of flow, and this could be the desired flow. So, now we should have a flow like this, right. The straight line will give you the kind of the expected flow, and this is the actual flow, and initially the actual outputs are not actually trend output, right, assuming that these are all not trend, without trend these are happening. So, now with the kind of training or trend, so then the particular movement can be actually streamlined, and then finally it like to converge towards the expected path. It may not be exactly converging towards the expected path, but it should be close to expected path. This is what we actually need. This is what we actually need, and that can be possible only when you can actually understand the problem and develop the problem. The second task of this particular requirement is defining the problem. So, here the idea is that you clearly defining the problem, it is not this particular process is not a trivial task. It is actually be careful and address properly. If you do not address properly or not defining properly, then again there is something wrong, and that will give you some kind of bad impact to the decision model. So, that means what is the standard message is like that every stage you must be very careful actually. So, so any kind of mistake or little bit kind of a problem. So, the entire structure may be in a different way, because everything is well connected in a kind, it is a kind of a continuous process, but everything is well connected. Any mistakes may affect the other one. Okay. So, here so we have a lots of complexities when we like to defining problems, like you may have a large number of actions, several competing objectives, several constraints, large number of decision variables, external effects, and these time constraints, all these things will be there in the particular process while you are defining the problem. So, you have to take care of all these kind of complexity while you are defining the problems, right. Then the next step is structuring the problem starting with the goals and objectives. That means, you must be very careful about fixing how best you can fix the better objective, and featuring the possible decisions, fixing the weightage of competitive objectives, identifying any constraints or restrictions, identifying the decision variables, looking the robustness, structuring of the sensitivity analysis, then finally looking for sustainability of solutions. Okay. So, these are all some what we can call as it is the kind of boundary or kind of conditions or restriction you are imposing with respect to your decision models. Once you fix all these things, then obviously within the kind of boundary we will get some kind of management decisions, and that is the most actually when you are going to take a decisions for a particular problem. So, you can develop a models with respect to different availability of data, techniques, tools, etc. But ultimately, so these are all under a particular conditions boundary. So, this cannot be actually a kind of an unlimited environment or unlimited situations. It is always actually with a limited boundary. So, the idea is that until unless you know all these boundaries, so then you may not in a position to find out the optimum solution, and that optimum solution may not be best. Okay. So, you may get, but it may not be the best. So, that is why identifying all these things at a time is always good to predict the best environment. Then analyzing the problems. So, here we are identifying and applying the appropriate business analytic techniques, and typically involves experimentation, statistical analysis and solution process. Then finally, looking for dynamics and looking for desired solution, which I have already told you. It is altogether continuous process. So, starting from data availability, problem understanding, picking up appropriate statistical techniques, developing models, fixing all these condition constraints, then finally get some kind of decisions, values of the decision variables, and that itself will give you some kind of insight, better insights or inference for management decisions as per your particular organization or industry requirements. Then the next step is interpreting the results to make a decisions. Sometimes managers interpret the results from the analysis phase and incorporate subjective judgment as per the requirement. Sometimes managers may not be in a position to take a decision without knowing the actual happenings, the actual fact, and sometimes as per the business requirement, analytics will give you some kind of path. It cannot actually just implemented. It will give you the fact. If you do not know the actual scenario, then you cannot actually put a judgment, proper judgment as per the particular business requirement. So, that means the subjective judgment cannot be very effective until unless you know the actual the kind of requirement. So, that is why business analytics, through business analytics you will get a particular decision model or decision kind of environment, but that may be applied, that may not be applied depending upon the kind of business requirement or some kind of subjective judgment. But there is a high chance that so the final judgment or final implementation will be very close or exactly close to the particular inference which you get from the decision making process, right. So, finally, understanding the limitation and model assumptions, must aware about the business dynamics and business environment, and must have knowledge on competitive process, because when you will be using some kind of subjective judgment to the particular decision making process, and then finally, you are in a position to implement, you must have all kind of knowledge in and out of the business environment. Until unless you know all these things, you are not in a position to take the decision. That is why it is very important that you must have all round of knowledge in and out of the particular business environment. Then finally, implementing the solution, translate the results of the models back to the real world, make the solution work in the organization by providing adequate training and resources. That is why I am saying that it is altogether it is a kind of decision making process. Be careful how you have to apply and materialize the process. And some of the side examples are here, and I am giving you for your reference. Just go through it, read and understand how you can actually start with the problems, analyze the problems and take a decisions, then kind of subjective judgment, then finally, how best you can implement as per the reality. So, these are altogether keywords starting from first lecture to fifth lecture, and this is all about the first week course structures, and that to unit 1. So, we have all these keywords and go through all these keywords, and if you have any doubt we can discuss in the later stage, and these keywords will be frequently used in the rest of the units, but this is all about actually regarding this snapshot of introduction to business analytics. By knowing all these details about data, tools, techniques, the requirement, the kind of structures, all these details, it will, I hope you have got a better exposure to understand the now on the effect or the kind of the reality, how you start and how to come with a kind of conclusion as per the business requirement and so far as a management decision is concerned. And some of the you can visit this website and go through some of the kind of tasks which is going through business analytics, some of the case study, and these are the 2 references books. Thank you all. Have a nice day with best wishes.